The death of Ayrton Senna, Imola, 1994. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix at Imola is remembered as the darkest weekend in Formula One history, culminating in the tragic death of Ayrton Senna on May 1st. Senna, a three-time world champion and one of the sport's most iconic drivers, was competing for Williams in what was only the third race of the season. The weekend began ominously. On Friday, Senna's close friend Rubens Barrichello suffered a horrific crash during practice. He was knocked unconscious and hospitalized, but fortunately survived with relatively minor injuries. On Saturday, tragedy struck. Austrian rookie Roland Ratzenberger died during qualifying after his front wing failed at high speed, causing him to crash head-on into a wall at over 300 kilometers per hour. The paddock was devastated. Senna, deeply affected by the loss, spent the evening in silence and was seen emotionally shaken. Despite the tension and grief, the race went ahead on Sunday. Senna, who had been leading the championship, started from pole position. At the start, an incident between J.J. Leto and Pedro Lamy scattered debris across the track, prompting the deployment of the safety car. For several laps, the field followed behind it. Crucially, this led to tire temperatures dropping significantly, something drivers would later say made the cars harder to control. On lap 7, the safety car returned to the pits. Just seconds into the restart, while leading the race, Senna's car went off the track at the high-speed Tamburello corner. Traveling at around 310 kilometers per hour, his Williams FW16 failed to turn in properly, going straight into a concrete wall. The impact was violent. A piece of the suspension pierced Senna's helmet, causing fatal head injuries. The race was red-flagged and Senna was airlifted to Maggiore Hospital in Bologna. Later that evening, it was announced he had died, though some reports suggest he was already clinically dead at the track. In his cockpit, officials found a folded Austrian flag. Senna had planned to honor Ratzenberger after the race. Senna's death shocked the world and led to sweeping safety reforms in F1. His loss is still felt today, not only for his legendary talent, but for the charisma, intensity, and spirit he brought to the sport. He was just 34 years old. The death of Roland Ratzenberger, Imola, 1994. Roland Ratzenberger's death on April 30th, 1994, during qualifying for the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, was a deeply tragic moment, overshadowed only by the death of Ayrton Senna the following day. Yet for many in Formula One, Ratzenberger's loss remains just as heartbreaking, marking the first driver fatality during a Grand Prix weekend in over 12 years. Ratzenberger, an Austrian driver, had only recently fulfilled his dream of making it to Formula One. At 33 years old, he was driving for the small and underfunded Simtek team. Though new to F1, he brought with him a wealth of experience from touring cars, endurance racing, and Formula 3000. He had finally earned his place in the sport and was determined to make the most of it. During Saturday qualifying, Ratzenberger went out for a flying lap after reportedly damaging the front wing of his car on a previous run by running over a curb. Unaware or underestimating the extent of the damage, he continued pushing at full speed. As he approached the ultra-fast Villeneuve corner, named ironically after another F1 tragedy, the compromised front wing failed. Traveling at over 300 kilometers per hour, 186 miles per hour, Ratzenberger lost all front downforce. The car went straight off the track and slammed into a concrete wall. The impact was severe, and he suffered a fatal skull fracture caused by the violent deceleration. Medical personnel arrived quickly, but there was little they could do. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward. The paddock was stunned. Many drivers, including Ayrton Senna, were visibly shaken. Senna, deeply affected by Ratzenberger's death, reportedly broke down in tears. He spent hours that night watching replays of the crash, questioning the safety of the sport, and even debated whether he should continue racing. Ratzenberger's death was a tragic reminder that even in modern Formula One, the risks were still very real. His passing marked the first F1 race weekend fatality since Riccardo Paletti in 1982. The following day, Senna himself would die in what became F1's darkest weekend. Though often overshadowed, Roland Ratzenberger's death was the first warning sign of a sport in crisis, and his memory continues to be honored by those who knew his passion and determination. Rubens Barrichello's crash. Imola, 1994. The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix weekend at Imola is remembered as the darkest in Formula One history. While the deaths of Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna are the most devastating events of that weekend, it all began with a frightening accident during Friday practice involving young Brazilian driver Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello, just 21 years old at the time, was racing for Jordan and quickly establishing himself as one of the most promising talents on the grid. During the first qualifying session on Friday, April 29th, Barrichello approached the Variante Bassa chicane at high speed, roughly 225 kilometers per hour, 140 miles per hour. As he hit the curbs, his car was launched into the air, becoming completely airborne. The Jordan 194 slammed into the top of the tire barriers and flipped violently, landing upside down. The impact knocked Barrichello unconscious. It was a chilling moment. His limp body in the cockpit made it look as though the sport had lost yet another driver. Track marshals and medical crews rushed to the scene. Professor Sid Watkins, F1's legendary medical chief, arrived quickly and helped stabilize Barrichello, who was still unconscious. When he eventually came to, Barrichello began thrashing and attempted to remove his oxygen mask, clearly disoriented. He was taken to the medical center and then airlifted to a hospital in Bologna for further evaluation. Miraculously, Barrichello had suffered only a broken nose, a cut on his arm, and a few bruises. He would not race that weekend, but he had survived what could have easily been a fatal crash. Many in the paddock, including Ayrton Senna, visited him afterward. Senna, who saw Rubens as a younger brother, was visibly shaken by the accident. That crash was the first sign that something was seriously wrong at Imola, and it foreshadowed the tragic events that would follow over the next 2 days. Rubens Barrichello's survival was a rare moment of relief in an otherwise devastating weekend. His miraculous escape reminded everyone how fragile life in Formula One could be and marked the beginning of a series of events that would forever change the sport. The tragedy of Jules Bianchi, Suzuka, 2014. Jules Bianchi's crash at the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix remains one of the most haunting moments in modern Formula One history. A talented young driver racing for Marussia, Bianchi was widely regarded as a future star, part of Ferrari's driver academy, and even being groomed for a future seat at the Scuderia. But On October 5th, 2014, during a rain-soaked race at the Suzuka circuit, disaster struck. Typhoon Fanfone had been approaching Japan, and although conditions were poor, the race went ahead as scheduled. Heavy rain, fading daylight, and standing water made visibility and grip incredibly difficult. Drivers struggled to keep their cars on track. On lap 42, Sauber driver Adrian Sutil lost control at turn 7, known as the Dunlop Curve, and crashed into the barriers. Marshals and a recovery vehicle, a large crane, were deployed to remove Sutil's car, but with double yellow flags meant to warn drivers to slow down, still in effect, the race was not red flagged. Just one lap later, Bianchi lost control at the same corner. His Marussia aquaplaned off the wet track and, in a cruel twist of fate, struck the recovery vehicle at high speed. The car slid underneath the crane's chassis, and the impact caused catastrophic head injuries. The crash was not captured on the main TV feed, but private footage later confirmed how severe the impact was. The race was immediately stopped and Bianchi was rushed to Meade General Hospital, unconscious and in critical condition. He was diagnosed with a diffuse axonal injury, a severe brain trauma. For 9 long months, his family and the motorsport community held out hope as he remained in a coma in his native France. On July 17, 2015, Jules Bianchi passed away at the age of 25, becoming the first driver to die from injuries sustained during an F1 race since Ayrton Senna in 1994. His death led to significant changes in Formula One safety, most notably the introduction of the Halo device in 2018, designed to protect drivers' heads from debris and impacts. Jules Bianchi's loss left a profound scar on the sport and a legacy that continues to save lives today. The death of Gilles Villeneuve, Zolder, 1982. Gilles Villeneuve, one of Formula One's most electrifying and beloved drivers, lost his life on May 8, 1982, during qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Known for his fearless driving, raw talent, and passionate connection with fans and Ferrari, Villeneuve's death sent shock waves through the F1 world. The 1982 season had already been turbulent. Tensions within the Ferrari team were high, especially after the controversial events of the previous race in Imola, where teammate Didier Pironi defied team orders and overtook Villeneuve to win. Villeneuve felt betrayed and reportedly vowed never to speak to Pironi again. Just 2 weeks later, he was still visibly upset, arriving at Zolder determined to reassert himself on the track. During the final qualifying session, with just minutes remaining, Villeneuve went out for a final run, pushing hard to improve his lap time. On that fateful lap, as he approached a high-speed section near Terlemenbocht, he came up behind the slower march car of Jochen Mass. Miscommunication between the two drivers proved fatal. Mass moved right to let Villeneuve through, but Villeneuve simultaneously veered right to pass. Traveling at around 225 kilometers per hour, 140 miles per hour, Villeneuve's Ferrari clipped the back of Mass's car. The contact launched Villeneuve's car into the air. It somersaulted violently, disintegrating mid-flight. The cockpit separated and threw Villeneuve across the track. His helmet was torn off, and he landed in the catch fencing with tremendous force. Track marshals and medical teams rushed to the scene. Villeneuve was found unresponsive, but still had a pulse. He was flown by helicopter to St. Raphael Hospital in Leuven and placed on life support. Tragically, that evening, it was confirmed that Gilles Villeneuve had died from a fatal neck fracture. He was just 32 years old. Villeneuve's death devastated Ferrari and fans around the world. Known for his uncompromising spirit, dazzling car control, and relentless drive, he left behind a legacy as one of the most thrilling drivers the sport has ever seen. To this day, his name is synonymous with passion, courage, and the soul of racing. Romain Grosjean's crash. Bahrain, 2020. On November 29, 2020, during the opening lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix, Formula One fans around the world witnessed one of the most terrifying accidents in the sport's modern history. Romain Grosjean, driving for the Haas F1 team, miraculously survived a fiery crash that looked more like something out of a movie than a real-life Grand Prix. The race had barely begun when, heading into Turn 3, Grosjean made contact with the AlphaTauri of Daniil Kvyat while trying to avoid other cars. The contact sent Grosjean's Haas spinning violently to the right, straight into a metal barrier at approximately 221 kilometers per hour, 137 miles per hour. The impact was catastrophic. Grosjean's car split in half upon contact with the barrier, and the fuel cell ruptured, causing an enormous explosion and fireball. The front half of the car, with Grosjean still inside, became lodged between the broken guardrails as flames engulfed the wreckage. For 28 horrifying seconds, Grosjean remained trapped in the burning car. With his race suit singed and visor melting from the heat, he managed to unbuckle himself and climb out, thanks in large part to the Halo device, introduced in 2018 to protect drivers' heads. Trackside medics, marshals, and F1's medical car team, led by Dr. Ian Roberts and Alan van der Meer, were acted instantly, pulling him away from the wreck and into safety. Amazingly, Grosjean suffered only second-degree burns to his hands and minor injuries to his foot. He was airlifted to a nearby military hospital in Bahrain and released just days later. The world watched in shock and then in awe. Grosjean's survival was seen as a testament to F1's incredible advancements in safety. His crash prompted further investigations and tweaks to barrier design and fire-resistant gear. After the crash, Grosjean said, "I saw death coming. I thought about my children, and I decided I had to get out." He would not race in F1 again after that season, but his miraculous escape became one of the most iconic moments in motorsport history. It was not a tragedy, it was a near miracle. And it reminded the world that even in the modern era, Formula One remains as dangerous as it is heroic.